You're important. So I'm also joined by DOT senior leadership. FHWA's Administrator, Nicole Nason, FTA Acting Administrator, Jane Williams, FHWA Deputy Administrator, Mala Parker, FHWA Executive Director, Tom Everett. Is Tom around here? I didn't see him. And then we have also the Department of Transportation's Chief of Staff, Todd Inman. So please give them a great round of applause. Well, I think this makes me 4 for 4. I'm participating in your Washington briefings during this administration. I think it's really, really important that the U.S. Department of Transportation and all of the state departments of transportation work closely together, and that we have a good working relationship, and that there's continual discussion and also collaboration, because we have so much to share with one another. And I've always thought that AASHTO provided a wonderful forum for this, and is a terrific provider of all sorts of other resources as well. So I want to thank Jim Timon and also Brandy Hendrickson for your leadership of this great organization. Well, as the President said in his State of the Union address, infrastructure remains a priority of this administration. And he has, you will see in the budget that we have just released that he in fact has a $1 trillion proposal over 10 years that builds upon the success of the FAST Act. It would provide long-term, stable, and predictable investment to help ensure that America has a safer, more reliable, and a more efficient transportation system. And as reflected in the President's fiscal year 2021 budget proposal, the U.S. Department of Transportation, our portion of the Surface Transportation Reauthorization proposal is a bold, comprehensive proposal, and I wish I could tell you all about it, but it's undergoing review in OMB, so you have to wait. But the budget basically calls for, of the $1 trillion, $810 billion in the extension of the FAST Act, and then an additional $190 billion within the $1 trillion for other infrastructure improvements, including bridges and also freight bottlenecks. So for fiscal year 2021, the President's budget request actually proposes a total of $89 billion to support transportation programs. And contrary to what you might have heard from from newspapers, this is actually a 2% increase in the overall budget of the department, both discretionary, mandatory, and contract obligation. And this is the largest request for transportation resources, needs in our country's history. So the U.S. Department of Transportation continues to press ahead with substantial investments on infrastructure. So for example, on February 19th, the department announced a NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity, to apply for $1 billion for the fiscal 2020 discretionary grant program through the BUILD program. To provide technical assistance to prospective applicants, the department is hosting a number of webinars, and the deadline to submit an application is May 18th, 2020. Now, the department intends to award 50% of the BUILD funding to projects located in rural America. Rural America has long been neglected in infrastructure funding. In fact, prior to us, it was about 27%. And yet we know that rural America's needs to be addressed from even a safety point of view. The majority of fatalities, you all know, occur on rural roads. So this commitment to America's rural communities is consistent with the department's what's called Routes Initiative, which I announced on October 8th, 2019 at your annual meeting. And to repeat what I said then, rural infrastructure is not just for the benefit of rural residents. 44% of passenger vehicle traffic in rural areas is urban residents traveling on those roads. So it should concern everyone that the fatality rate on rural roads is twice that on urban roads. Although 19% of Americans live in rural areas, 46% of the nation's highway fatalities occur in rural communities. So the rural transportation networks, which really facilitate the movement of manufactured products, agriculture, and other commodities to market, are absolutely vital to our nation's economy and all Americans' quality of life. Nearly half of all truck vehicle miles traveled occur on rural roads, and 2/3 of rail freight originates in rural areas. Another example, on February 19th, the department announced $520.5 million in airport improvement grants to 287 airports in 41 states. With these grants, this administration would have invested $11.4 billion to more than 2,000 airports across America for safety and infrastructure improvements. And then on February 14th, I made an announcement of more than $280 million in discretionary grant funding for the ports of our country through the new Port Infrastructure Development Program, of which Congressman Diaz-Balart deserves a lot of credit. And this funding is designed to improve port facilities at or near coastal seaports. And of the 15 projects that were awarded grants, 6 are located in opportunity zones. And this is an administration priority and initiative to revitalize economically distressed communities using private investments. I know that we're all working every single day to think of ways to make transportation safer, more accessible, and better for everyone. Safety innovations and initiatives have reduced annual traffic fatalities by 33% since 1972. And that achievement occurred while vehicle miles, as you well know, traveled increased 156%. So the fatality rate in 1972 is nearly 4 times what it is now. So you've all done a great job. And further improving traffic safety remains our greatest and ongoing transportation challenge. It's encouraging that in 2018, we saw the 2nd consecutive year of declining traffic fatalities. Initial data for the first 3 quarters of 2019 indicated another yearly decline. So we're making progress, and yet 36,560 individuals were killed during 2018 in traffic crashes on America's roads. And most of these tragedies, as we all know, are preventable. So there's still a lot for all of us to do to improve road safety. I want to bring to your attention 2 particular categories of road users that we need to pay attention to, if you wouldn't mind. One is pedestrians, and the other one is bicyclists. They've actually registered increased fatalities in 2018. And the department is going to host a pedestrian safety summit on April 7th of this year, 2020, to address the rise in pedestrian fatalities and provide a forum for attendees to identify best practices and solutions to better protect pedestrians. Now, attendees will identify the leading factors impacting the rise in pedestrian fatalities, solutions, and also contribute to finalize a national action plan on pedestrian safety. Among the innovative technologies advancing traffic safety are vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-infrastructure communications. And not so long ago, the notion was, of vehicle-to-everything communications, or V2X, seemed really futuristic. But it's coming. And on January 15th, I announced a new pilot program to deploy V2X around the country to prevent accidents involving first responders. Every year, there are about 46,000 crashes, 17,000 injuries, and 150 fatalities involving emergency response vehicles. So this new initiative, the First Responder Safety Technology Pilot Program, will provide up to $38 million to equip emergency response vehicles, transit vehicles, related infrastructure, including traffic signals, highway, rail grade crossings with V2X technology. And these systems are going to use the 5.9 gigahertz, the safety band of spectrum, currently allocated for use in transportation systems. We know this is important to you, it's important to us, because we all believe that it is really important to retain this bandwidth for this purpose. And we've all talked to the FCC about this, and I would urge that you continue to do so. Jim has been keeping me updated on their talks, his talks with FCC. We just cannot give up. Now, the U.S. Department of Transportation's commitment to safety includes an all-out, a high-profile effort to make the transportation sector a more effective force against human trafficking as well. And so let me speak to that. On January 29th, the department hosted the Put the Brakes on Human Trafficking Summit. You know, we think of roads as facilitating so many wonderful things, but America's roads, railroads, railways, airways, and waterways are also being tapped to facilitate human trafficking. So the transportation sector is in a unique position to help save victims of human trafficking and to help law enforcement in apprehending the perpetrators. Hundreds of transportation leaders convened at the department, and we had this wonderful summit that talked about how can we all combat human trafficking across all transportation sectors. And over 370 have now signed on to the department's Transportation Leaders Against Human Trafficking Pledge. And today, we actually have achieved our goal of getting 100 new pledges over 100 days. In fact, it was 98 days, but who's counting? So thank you. But what's most heartwarming is that we are seeing that companies, labor, governmental, non-governmental organizations in every mode of transportation, they're just stepping up. They have committed to train over 1 million employees to help fight human trafficking. And multiple initiatives are underway to increase awareness of human trafficking and equip transportation industry employees and the public with strategies on detection and prevention. It's hard to believe that in a country as wealthy as ours, as sophisticated as ours, that human trafficking occurs all across the land. So we are enlisting as many allies as we can to bring together the best efforts, the best strategies, and the necessary resources to the battle against human trafficking. As and if we've just had incredible response. But I hope that you will also go out within your spheres of influence and also persuade others, allies that you work with, on what is happening with this nefarious, new, modern form of slavery. And if your organization is not signed or you know of others who want to sign on to the pledge, please work with us. The website is trafficking@dot.gov. So I'm here once again with great pleasure and great honor to join a great group of Americans who care about safety, who care about the quality of life, the efficiency and productivity of our country through the state of our infrastructure, our transportation infrastructure. Thank you so much for all that you do. We are your partners to help you achieve your goals. And I have said this many times before, but I'll say it again. Your success is our success. Thank you so much.